a scarred man with a hook for a hand, a giant roaming the streets looking for teenagers to swallow whole, an invisible spirit haunting the woods, a phantom in a rabbit suit. We tell these stories over campfires and at sleepovers. Culturally, these are protective boundaries, designed to keep children out of the woods and away from the dangers of the night. These origins reside in police evidence lockers, where the supernatural elements evaporate to reveal real, documented kidnappers, recluses, and convicts. Forensic scrutiny transforms these ghost stories into case files, exposing the uncomfortable reality of the human beings behind the masks. If you grew up on Staten Island in the 1970s, you knew about Cropsey. The local legend described a horribly scarred figure with an open wound face and a hook for a hand, dragging children into the deep woodlands. The facts point to a man named Andre Rand. In the late 1960s, Rand worked at the Willowbrook State School, a notoriously overcrowded institution for children with disabilities. Rand served time in 1969 for an attack on a 9-year-old girl. When he was released 16 months later, a chilling pattern emerged. Young girls across Staten Island vanished without a trace. For years, police suspected Rand, but lacked the evidence to hold him. That changed in 1987. Investigators found forensic proof linking him to the disappearance and murder of a 12-year-old girl, resulting in a 25 years to life sentence. A community dealing with a string of unsolved child murders needed a way to process that trauma. The hook-handed Cropsey emerged because a fictional monster is easier to face than a real predator living next door. Across the Atlantic in the northwest of England, 1980s teenagers shared a different rumor. They warned each other about Purple Ackey, a massive bodybuilder who would hunt down local rugby players and swallow them whole. This cartoonish giant was actually a man named Akinwale Arowige. Arowige traveled across the UK by train, driven by a bizarre but real psychological compulsion to track down young men and squeeze their muscles. In 1986, this persistent harassment turned fatal. A 16-year-old boy named Gary Keller fled to a New Brighton train station to escape Arowige. He jumped onto the tracks and was accidentally electrocuted. Arowige was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. Even after winning an appeal and being released, he spent the next few decades in a loop of arrests, prison sentences, and releases, unable to stop his behavior. Local law enforcement struggled to contain a chronic psychological compulsion. In response, the local culture distorted Arowige into a monster to mask the uncomfortable reality of a harasser they couldn't stop. For nearly 30 years, the Kennebec Valley in Maine was seemingly haunted by an invisible spirit. Cabin owners reported over 1,000 break-ins, always when no one was home, leaving no trace of the culprit. The ghost was Christopher Thomas Knight, arrested in 2013. He survived brutal Maine winters, where temperatures hit 20 degrees below zero, using only a basic nylon tent. Knight entered the woods in 1986 at the age of 20 and erased himself from the world. In 3 decades of complete isolation, he had only a single brief conversation with another human being, saying the word hi to a passing hiker. The police inventory, food, cooking utensils, propane, and basic toiletries, reveals a man securing the absolute minimum required to stay alive. The legend of the North Pond Hermit provided a local explanation for the extreme lengths a profoundly broken outcast took to withdraw from society completely. In Virginia, the legend of the Bunny Man has become standardized. An escaped asylum patient survives by eating rabbits before eventually hanging teenagers from a local overpass. The origin of this violent story sits in a 1970 police blotter. A man, annoyed by trespassers, yelled at a couple and threw a hatchet at their car. Because the man was never caught, an information vacuum was created. In the absence of facts, public panic spiraled into rumors of rabbit costumes and escaped mental patients. When we encounter an unexplained threat and we don't get the facts, our imaginations fill the gap, escalating a random encounter into a spectacular horror story. A killer with a hook for a hand, a giant swallowing teenagers, a phantom haunting the woods. In each case, court documents and survival records have successfully replaced the supernatural elements. We invent these boogeymen because processing a ghost is easier than confronting the reality of a human predator or severe mental illness. Folklore acts as a shield. To understand the myth is to look directly at the real, flawed human being the story attempts to hide. The true horror of an urban legend is the verifiable crime the story was meant to obscure.